Good morning and welcome to this wintry morning. I'm so happy to be here with you, and we're going to sing a couple songs together. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. We'll sing this one twice, and might be a little unfamiliar. Just follow my lead. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I am solid, I am free, I am solid, I am free. In the ultimate I dwell, in the ultimate I dwell. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I am solid, I am free. I am solid, I am free. In the ultimate I dwell. In the ultimate I dwell.
Good morning and welcome everyone to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Jillian Lampert, serving on your board of directors. We are a congregation in the free faith tradition, a community of youth, adults, and children dedicated to pluralism in the spiritual search and ethics grounded in action. Our mission is to grow our souls and serve the world in love. Service participants today include Carol Coette, Deborah DeBrew, Victoria Safford, Thomas Christie, and Russell Rogers, supported by Anna Garris and Aaron Scott. Music today is from Carol Coette, Peter Mayer, and the WBUUC Choir, directed by Thaxter Cuneo. Today, after the service at 11:15, we hope that you will join us for Cyber Social Hour. It's a fun way to meet others, see old friends, and share a little conversation in small facilitated groups. We'll put the Zoom link and easy instructions in the chat box. Our auction committee invites you to donate an item or service for this year's online auction, and today is the deadline. See the link in the link to the auction website in the chat box below. Finally, all are invited to a Thanksgiving gathering this week on Thursday morning, Thanksgiving Day at 10 a.m. Join us to share memories and stories, gratitude and hopes. Hosted by Victoria Safford, all are welcome at 10 a.m. The link is in the chat box. We're glad you're here. Welcome to our church.
Come in. Come into this space which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide nor pretend nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this space where we can heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this space where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this space. Together we make it a holy space. And welcome. Roxy Stouffer Cruz will light the chalice.
Good morning from Minneapolis. I'm Roxy Stouffer Cruz. This month's theme, outrage, the practice of holding that which is holy, couldn't be more relevant in today's world. I find myself experiencing outrage quite often every day. All I have to do is turn on the news or log into social media, and I'm inundated with stories of assaults on people of color, our health, our rights, our planet. So to ground myself, I need to focus my energies on working toward, on fighting for, on speaking out in support of, and today lighting the chalice for that which I hold holy: a clean planet, our children's future, justice and equity for those who are marginalized in our society, freedom of choice, freedom to love who you love, empathy, and hope.
Please join me in the opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. The hymn is Morning Has Broken. It's number 38 in the gray hymnal.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung from completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
This week, all over the world, transgender and genderqueer people and their loved ones and allies are observing the Trans Day of Remembrance. I've asked Deborah DeBrew to lead us in a moment of reflection.
Good morning. This past Friday, November 20th, was the International Transgender Day of Remembrance. And while I do not speak for the other transgender or gender nonconforming members of our UU community, I think they're with me in asking you to join us in making space in your hearts for the transgender people who were murdered this year, 2020, just because they were transgender. As of October 31st, at least 31 people have been murdered in the United States alone, and most of them were transgender people of color. I also invite you to hold in your hearts those who were attacked but survived their injuries and do not show up as a statistic. And please hold in your hearts those who just could not hang on any longer to their lives. Right now, as I speak, there Their friends and loved ones are hurting too. Those of you who identify as transgender, please remember that here you are not alone. You're just not. And those of you who are allies, thank you for being our allies and helping us in both the big ways and the small ways. Someday, Transgender Day of Remembrance will be obsolete, but today is not that day. Thank you. And now please join together in singing Spirit of Life.
In these times, your financial support for our congregation matters more than ever. Please be generous.
It is a long-standing practice here to invite members of the congregation to share with us their journeys of faith. It's a rare opportunity for us, for them, to be given this glimpse not of opinions and ideas and knowledge necessarily, but wisdom and doubt mingled in with the faith and questions circling the answers and convictions hard won and wonder still emerging. This, I believe, is a hard assignment. We ask our speakers to speak the truth as bravely as they can, that they tell us a story, that they model for us this essential spiritual work, making a narrative out of all your experience, making meaning out of the days we are given. Our presenters are charged with speaking to us as openly as they can, and we in turn are charged to listen as openly as we can. And this circuit of speaking and hearing is important because in our tradition, the religious life unfolds in community. There is the solitary journey of the soul all on its own, and there is the return to the circle of companions who will hold our story as sacred and ordinary and both embrace us and challenge us to deeper growth. This year, while we're physically apart, we're adding more This I Believe services on Sundays because it matters so much more than ever to hear the strong, clear, beautiful voices of our congregation. Our first speaker today is Russell Rogers. Russell and his wife, Beth, have 3 daughters and 2 grandkids and another grandkid on the way. Russell grew up in Arizona, met Beth in Switzerland, and moved through 5 other states before landing in Maplewood. His career moved through mental health counseling and 5 other stages before landing in human resources. He loves pad thai, and he used to love racquetball before COVID. He tries with occasional success, he says, to live with kindness and integrity. Russell Rogers.
I'm grateful for your time and attention. It's a gift for you to hear part of my story and hold my beliefs as valuable. I'll focus today on the power of attention and the gift of feeling seen. Attention to small details has played a key role in helping me believe in the inherent worth of each person, including myself. The idea of inherent worth has conflicted for years with baggage from abuse and depression. I will briefly discuss childhood abuse without detail in a minute, and those triggered by the topic might want to tune out that part. I'll raise my hand at the start and the stop of that, so you can mute me if you want. The abuse-related beliefs I've worked to replace include, I'm damaged goods and I'm not good enough. They're beliefs rooted in fear and shame that I'm not proud of. This talk is about moving from the old beliefs to healthy new ones. I'll begin and end with my daughter's simple story about when she was leading a children's activity, helping kids at a table. She looked up to notice a little girl by herself on the edge of the room, uneasy and unsure where she fit. My daughter held her gaze for a second and smiled, then had to go back to her task. A minute later, the girl appeared by her side and said, I saw you see me, so I came to you. A sign that she was seen mattered to the girl, and it told her that she might matter to my daughter. Small details like that have played a key role in my zigzag path toward a belief that I matter. Passing facial expressions and brief exchanges form the roots of both my flawed beliefs and highest aspirations. I'll give 2 negative examples, and I'll end with a positive one. The first negative example is when someone I trusted abused me as a child, and that brief period shaped my life for decades. The tiny details did the most damage. What I remember most vividly are not the acts themselves or the pain, but the facial expression of the abuser. Just like Dr. Blasey Ford had Brett Kavanaugh's laughter etched in her memory, I can't forget the amused smirks. What sticks in my mind was my abuser calmly grinning at my pain, wondering what I might do next and how he could use it against me. It was a game for him. In moments when I was crying and bewildered about what I had done with my world in chaos, I would look at his face. I found him staring at me intently with a skewed grin of curiosity. He was searching my eyes with amusement in his, examining me like a specimen to dissect. He took pleasure in my pain, treating me as an object for his amusement. If he did see me clearly, he didn't value me. Those smirks communicated clearer than words, even clearer than the abuse itself, to my 10-year-old brain that I was subhuman, somehow not good enough to deserve care or strong enough to defend myself. The expression communicated the meaning I took from the experience. Small details mattered and rippled through my life, reinforcing unhealthy beliefs. The second example of attention to small details having a big impact is my upbringing in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons. Although their doctrine fosters a belief in inherent worth for some, my parents' practice taught me something else. The doctrine is that we're all children of loving heavenly parents. The truly noble and great souls were meant to come to earth in these last days. That teaching, though, got twisted to become toxic to my belief in personal worth. Nothing seemed to matter in our home except being noble and great in building Zion. My parents only paid attention if I did something spectacular. My mom told me that the doctor had recommended ending my pregnancy because she had almost died giving birth to my older brother, but she had received an answer to prayer. I was a spirit with a special mission, and she should bring me to earth. Affection hinged on fulfilling my glorious potential. I felt like I mattered mostly because of that destiny that she had received an answer to prayer about. Teary hugs and whispers of love were reserved for special events like baptism, a 2-year mission to Switzerland, and eternal marriage in the LDS temple. In contrast, my parents paid little attention to my non-church life. My dad would sometimes stretch his leg out from his recliner during TV commercials to briefly pat my leg or my back with his big toe, and I thought of that as normal affection. If I brought up sports, friends, or school, they met me with blank stares at best and impatient shushing or anger at times as they got back to more important work. I learned to stick to approved topics. I faced anger if I strayed from building Zion, I got attention if I showed faith, and I otherwise felt irrelevant. I learned to carefully show the parts of myself that mattered to my family and hide the rest. I showed conviction and hid doubts. I should also say that I sincerely felt deep conviction for extended periods. The LDS Church was a lifeline to me in hard times, my ticket to affection and some form of worth. Through all the ups and downs, though, I learned to hide who I was. I never dreamed of disclosing any abuse. My parents didn't see who I was. Big deal. This burden is low on the scale of human suffering, I know. I only use it to show the power of attention to details in twisting my beliefs about inherent worth. My family tried to teach my divine worth as a child of God, but instead their attention patterns taught me performance-based acceptance. From where my family paid attention, I learned perfectionism, that people only earn love with spectacular results while hiding everything else. Growing up Mormon alone didn't twist my belief about worth by itself. It was the daily details. My wife also grew up in the LDS Church, served a mission, and married in the temple, and she understands inherent worth better than anyone I know. She has not wavered from her faith, struggled with perfectionism, or failed to find good in others. Her family had different practices. They saw her as lovable for who she was, and she focused on positive things. Attention to small things shapes the impact of big things. My third example includes the positive impact of my wife's attention to good things as I struggled with depression, finally bringing me to believe in inherent worth. My wife's email address starts with "Notice happy things," and she lives by that. She found good in me when I could not. She's done huge things like move across the country and support a series of head-spinning career changes on my part. However, I think the small things have mattered more to build my belief in inherent worth. She instinctively defends people who I badmouth. She reflects with me on 3 good things each night at bedtime. She respects our religious differences and values my opinion. The most important small thing, though, is that she has embraced the big things cheerfully, without condemnation. I once proposed uprooting our family, yet again, with fear and trembling. I expected at least weariness and exasperation, if not rage, that I could possibly expect even 1 more ounce of her sacrifice. Instead, I saw kindness and determination on her face, as if my needs mattered more than anything in her life, as if it's normal to face challenges together and support somebody you love. Her attention to small good things helped me learn the same practice over time. I've had passing encounters with coworkers or strangers, even at a former church, that have saved my day, if not my life. Struggling with depression years ago, I would show up suicidal, looking for any reason to stay alive or be done. On one such day, a woman I had met only a couple times at church struck up a conversation about thoughts that an earlier chat had inspired. She touched my arm and said something kind as she walked away, and I got teary as I walked to my car. I don't know that she saved my life, but she rekindled hope. The simple fact that she remembered, noticed, and valued me made a huge difference that day. Although small things matter, what counts as small depends on perspective. For most people, staying alive isn't much to brag about, and settling for survival is a shameful surrender. For me, staying alive when depression made me want to die is what I'm most proud of in my entire life. For many years, I deliberately chose every day to endure suffering for the sake of others. I consider merely surviving my greatest gift and most noble choice. From this small choice has come big effects. I raised 3 kids, spoke at weddings, helped save lives and marriages as a counselor, had my grandson named after me, and loved racquetball. Just showing up paid off. Survival is never enough, except when it is. Believing that survival is enough saved my life, becoming a more comforting focus of attention than the twisted comfort of thinking about the escape of suicide. I've learned that where we focus our attention physically changes our brain. There's this saying, neurons that fire together wire together. Repeatedly firing neurons with rumination or reflection strengthens connections, making them more likely to fire together again. Attention strengthens neural circuits, similar to how deer traveling the same path in a forest create a deeper and deeper trail. What we repeatedly hold in attention shapes our brain to improve processing of related information. Our attention builds information superhighways in our head. The trouble is that's a two-edged sword. Those well-practiced circuits can be superhighways for my healthy or unhealthy beliefs. My years of ruminating on trauma and suicide were like running laps in hell, creating ruts in my brain and a highway of hopelessness. I became extremely efficient at processing triggers for despair and self-loathing. However, I have hope for change, as in the formation of my unhealthy beliefs, attention to small things can build healthy new patterns. For example, people meditating daily on loving kindness physically changed their brains in multiple studies, creating denser tissue in an area linked to feeling love and positive emotions. I now do loving kindness meditation daily. A small thing like focused attention changes my brain and my mood. It follows then why my keys to managing depression have not been big things, not earth-shaking breakthroughs or a long list of medications, although both of those things have helped. What saved my life in the long run was disciplined practice of tiny acts of attention to grow the good in my life. The secret has been things like mindfulness, gratitude, sleep, and exercise. Those small daily acts have become habits that install the good. I'm firing neurons that I want to wire together, reinforcing circuits that register and savor good things in my life. You might say that those changes are just a drop in the bucket in my 50s compared to the decades of suicidal rumination, but that very phrase, drop in the bucket, is precisely why I still hope. The Buddha once said, quote, "Think not lightly of good, saying, it will not come to me. Drop by drop is the water pot filled. Likewise, the wise person, gathering it little by little, fills themselves with good," unquote. Taking in the good, drop by drop, small moment by moment, has changed my life. I've even dabbled in related wild speculation that attention might border on the holy. So consider this an invitation to chat if you're interested, because I have no time to cover that now. I loosely believe that attention is mystical and holy, but that's not my main point. My point is the importance of noticing the fragile and miraculous details of our lives. Attention is the currency of love, with the power to change lives, bridging from self-loathing to a belief in inherent worth. If somebody risks exposing who they really are, I want to hold that with cupped hands, in both hands, as precious. I want to see them and value them as they are, because I know from experience how I handle that gift has lasting effects. I have felt seen in this community, and that's central to my belonging. I can't feel truly loved unless I am truly known. I say to you what the little girl said to my daughter, "I saw you see me, so I came to you." Attention to small things matters. That's really just another way of saying that I believe there's hope for change, and perhaps there's hope that I might matter. I want to treat the details of this moment and these relationships as if they really matter, because they do. This I believe. Thank you.
When I was a boy each week, on Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest. He would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything, everything, everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad, miracles don't happen still. But now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything, everything, everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. But now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face, say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
Our second speaker this morning is Thomas Christie. Thomas grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and comes from a long line of Methodists. After a brief career as a high school math teacher, Thomas moved to Minnesota in 2010 to study cognitive science at the University of Minnesota. Thomas and his partner Emily live in St. Paul with their 2 children. They joined White Bear UU Church as members in 2017. Thomas Christie.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Christie, and I use the pronouns he, him, and his. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota with my wife, Emily, and our 2 wonderful kids. I've been a member of White Bear UU Church for about 4 years, and today I have the honor and privilege to speak with you for a few minutes about what I believe. To begin with, I'd like to share a quote by a statistician named George Box. In the 1970s, Box wrote a paper in which he claimed, and I quote, "all models are wrong." In a follow-up paper, he repeated that phrase and added, "but some are useful." All models are wrong, but some are useful. This has become a pretty famous quote in the scientific community, and it even has its own Wikipedia page. Box was referring to scientific models, and he's correct that all scientific models are wrong, because a scientific model is a simplified version of whatever it is you're trying to study. It's simplified, but it captures something important about that thing. Box's assertion has become a mantra for me in the rest of my life, and I'll say more about that in a minute. When I was a child, I thought it was really, really important to have a correct belief about God. I grew up going to a Methodist church, which was relatively laid back, but I was a pretty serious kid and a little high-strung, and I grew up in Arkansas, surrounded by people who thought that what happened to you when you died for eternity depended on your beliefs about God. An eternity in hell or heaven depended on your ideas about God and Jesus overlapping one for one with the truth. And this really stressed me out a lot, because you couldn't actually observe that particular truth. There was no real evidence that Methodists were right and Baptists were wrong, for example, or that Muslims weren't right, or Buddhists. Any of these people could be correct in their beliefs, and there was no evidence to tell one way or the other. I found this alarming because so much was at stake. So to solve this problem, I tried to gather as much information as I could. I went to church camp. I went to Christian youth groups as a teenager. I went on a week-long Christian youth retreat in Colorado, where someone called me one of them for admitting I still wasn't sure what I believed about God. In church with my parents, I found that asking serious questions about God made conversations really uncomfortable. I wouldn't say I was a believer, but I was really looking for a reason to believe. I never did adopt a firm set of cosmological beliefs because when I did adopt a belief, I wanted it to be the right one. So until I found the right model and convinced myself that it was right, I wanted to keep my options open. Maybe I was afraid of commitment, but maybe my hesitancy arose from a need for certainty. Paradoxically, this left me as uncertain about God as anyone I knew. College-level math is mostly concerned with proving things, so naturally when I got to college, I became a math major. At last, I thought, here are some things I could actually know. Whether mathematical theorems had anything to do with God was still an open question, but you might be surprised by how many mathematicians think they do. When mathematicians see a proof that is particularly elegant or beautiful and demonstrates something that's both simple and profound, they say the proof is from the book. Capital T, capital B, the book. The book they're referring to is the one written by God, of course, where he keeps all his favorite math proofs. A mathematician named Paul Erdős once said, "You don't have to believe in God, but you should believe in the book." This book also has its own Wikipedia page, and you can buy something called Proofs from the Book online or at a bookstore if you're interested. My first semester in college, I met a very nice Unitarian woman named Emily, and we started dating. And after a couple months, I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and met her parents one weekend. On Sunday, we went to their church, All Souls Unitarian Church. At the risk of stating it too strongly, my eyes were open that day. I can't say I learned anything about God that Sunday, but I learned a lot about the way a community could be and what a church could be. The sanctuary was large and open, with huge clear windows and light streaming in instead of dark stained glass blocking out the world. They didn't say the Apostles' Creed and chant in unison what they believed. Instead, they were there to share questions, to share the mystery of existence, to be in awe together, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And I learned that there existed a group of people, many of whom had the same questions I did, the same lack of certainty, and all of whom were okay with me still asking questions. At that church, I wasn't one of them. I was one of us. I'd found my people. 4 years later, Emily and I got married in that church. 2 years after that, in a classics program in New Mexico, I read a book by a philosopher named Baruch Spinoza. Baruch is the same name as Barack, like Barack Obama, and Benedict, the Pope, meaning blessed, like a benediction. Spinoza was a smart and confident Jew in the 17th century Amsterdam. When he was 23, he was excommunicated from the Jewish community for asking hard questions and expressing strong opinions about God and the Torah that were not the same as the opinions of community leaders. The leaders ostracized Spinoza and forbade any communication with him, and I quote, orally or in writing. So Spinoza spent most of the rest of his life by himself, grinding lenses for astronomical equipment and thinking about God. When he died, one of his friends went through his desk drawers and found a manuscript for a book titled simply Ethics. He smuggled the manuscript into another country to be published. When I first read Spinoza's Ethics, my mind was really, really blown. It was exactly what I'd been looking for most of my life. Spinoza structured the entire book like a mathematical treatise, starting with definitions of terms and a set of axioms. He then filled the whole book with propositions and lemmas and proofs, just like a mathematical treatise. Except the book isn't about math. It's about God and humans and how to live and how to treat each other. To a certain eye, it's absolutely beautiful. I've read it cover to cover probably 5 times, but it's been a while since I've read it. So if you want to do a Zoom book group, just let me know. So what does Spinoza say? Basically, that God and nature are the same thing, just viewed in 2 different ways. Viewed as a physical thing, the stuff around us we call nature, and viewed as an intellectual thing, we call the same stuff God. Like nature, God is always changing and moving. Spinoza used the Latin phrase Deus sive natura, meaning God or nature. God, that is, nature. God, or in other words, nature. If nature and God are the same thing, considered in different ways, and if we're part of nature, then we're also part of God in the only really meaningful way I can think of. We're also part of each other. To put it as Spinoza would, you and I are participating in the same substance, unseparated. And what we think are differences between us are only incomplete ideas. That's a quote. Figments of our imagination that do not correspond to any reality. Spinoza's God isn't the Abrahamic God. This God doesn't have a personality or will in the way we usually use those words. But God has an order and has created and is the same as this beautiful world around us. When someone asked Einstein if he believed in God, he said, he believes in Spinoza's God. I do too. Spinoza became my guy. And somewhere along the way, the question about what would happen to my soul unasked itself. I realized in hindsight that to discuss the fate of your individual soul was a conversation with a loaded premise, and one that I'd been able to let go of. The next year, my cosmological world shattered again when I realized that the application of Spinoza's philosophy to everyday life was really dependent on the human capacity for rationality and reason. That is a noble and good assumption for an Enlightenment philosopher to make, but to modern sensibilities, it's pretty naive. That year, I read philosopher David Hume. To paraphrase, Hume said, "Don't forget that you're an animal whose messy, noisy, failure-prone sense organs are your only method for knowing anything about the world. Also, you're very forgetful, and your reasoning ability is awful." And I had a hard time arguing with any of that. But it meant that Spinoza's quest to use reason to, as he said, participate in the mind of God was doomed to failure. So where does that leave me now? Well, I still believe in Spinoza's God, but I hold that belief loosely. Spinoza's understanding of God is not the same thing as God, whatever that is. If nothing else, it's limited by his finite brain. It's just a model, and all models are wrong. They are simplifications and maybe not even very good ones. And that includes Spinoza's and mine. So if all models are wrong, why would you believe one thing over another? Remember that George Bach said, but some models are useful. What does it mean for a model or a belief to be useful? I will tell you what I think. Some beliefs drive hatred, exclusion, and the diminishment of other human beings. Other beliefs promote compassion, human flourishing, creativity, joy, community, forgiveness, love, respect for those born and not yet born, and respect for the world that we somehow, mysteriously, have been given to care for. When in doubt, always choose that second set of beliefs. Choose the model that helps you be good to other people and the natural world. It's okay if your cosmology is a little off. So that's what I believe. Choose the useful model because you'll never find the true one. In honor of Baruch Spinoza, the blessed, I'll leave you with the closing words at All Souls Unitarian Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Be blessed and be a blessing. Thank you.
Thomas and Russell, thank you. You are both a blessing to our community for the gift of your stories, your courage in sharing them with us, for the gift of your lives shining in the world. We are so grateful. Thank you. Let's join in a spirit of meditation. Spirit of life, spirit of love, God of 1,000 names and beyond all naming. Hold us steady. Keep us strong and bright as we head now unsteadily into these holidays, the unknown landscape of Thanksgiving this week and beyond. Keep us strong in gratitude and bright in hope as together apart we shape new ways of celebration, temporary ways, so that we and those we love and everybody can safely return to the old ways next year, or break with the old ways and make something new. Hold us steady now. Keep us strong in gratitude, bright in hope. And on Thursday this week, whatever brings us comfort, whatever makes us laugh and silly, whatever makes us playful and ridiculous, whatever old movies or books or games or walks outside, whatever sweet indulgences will lift our spirits, whatever foods we really love, well, bring it on. May each of us find some one thing to savor and enjoy, however small, this week. For those who are sick, so many. For those who are grieving now, so many, many. May there be comfort. May there be peace. May we be peace and comfort to each other and go gently now, holding and beholding one another as the fragile sacred vessels that we are. Every one of us just trying to get by now, just trying to stay bright right now. For just a moment, together, we'll hold silence. And into this holy silence and out of it, I invite you to whisper the names of those you're holding in your heart today, so we may hold them all together. Amen and amen. Carol's going to lead us in our closing song, You Are the Face of God, which was brought to us by Shay McKay.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of love. I hold you in my heart. You are my family. You are the face of love. You are the face of hope. I hold you in my heart. You are a light to me. You are the face of hope. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.
Please join me in our closing words. May peace dwell within our hearts and understanding in our minds. May courage steel our will and love of truth forever guide us.
Friends, thank you for joining us this morning. It feels like now more than ever, it really matters that we stay connected to each other. If you're visiting today and you want to know more about what's happening through our church, go to our website and sign up for the e-news. We won't flood your inbox, I promise. We'll just share opportunities to keep connected. You're all invited at 11:15 to join us for Cyber Social Hour. It's actually just half an hour of easy conversation in small groups. It's really fun, really easy. There's a link in the chat box to help you find your way. And you're all welcome to join me this Thursday morning at 10 o'clock, Thanksgiving Day, to share stories and memories, gratitude, and hope. The link for that is in the chat box also. We are sending so much love to you today from Stillwater, Woodbury, Minneapolis, Hudson, St. Paul, Maplewood, and from our beloved home here on Maple Street in Matamidi, Minnesota. Farewell and stay well, friends, from all of us. Amen.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. This race in vain. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search